You ever get that feeling? Like you're just drowning in information these days.
Yeah.
Headlines and articles and social media, it's like you're just skimming the surface of everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and you've specifically requested this deep dive into slow reading.
Yeah.
And I think you're really onto something there. It's like, how do we push back against all that noise?
Yeah.
Really engage with what we're reading.
Well, it is fascinating how our brains have kind of adapted to this digital world, right?
Right.
We've become so incredibly efficient at just like scanning and filtering information,
Yeah,
but it comes at a cost.
totally. Like I was just reading about this thing called F-pattern reading.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically like online, our eyes just skim the top and left side of the page.
Right.
And we miss the rest. It's like we're wired for headlines and bullet points.
It's like we've outsourced our attention spans to algorithms in a way.
Yeah.
And there's a neurological reason for that.
What's that?
Our brains are wired to prioritize information based on, well, how important we think it is and also if it's a potential threat, right?
Oh, interesting.
So in the online world, that translates to, bright colors and flashing banners, those clickbait headlines, all the things that give us that quick dopamine hit.
Mm-hmm.
But that constant stimulation, that actually makes it harder to like really understand things.
Wow.
It's like you can't really savor a gourmet meal when you're also scarfing down a bag of chips, right?
Oh, that's such a good analogy.
You're not going to get the full experience.
Right. It makes you wonder, like, if we're always in this skimming mode,
Yeah.
are we missing out on all the nuances, the deeper layers of meaning?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. There was this study back in 2007.
Wow.
They compared how well people understood things when they read plain text versus like a multimedia presentation with all the bells and whistles. You'd think the multimedia would be better, right? More engaging.
Yeah, for sure.
But actually, the people who read the plain text, they understood it better.
Really?
It turns out all those extra things, they can actually distract us from the core message.
That's interesting.
It's like, imagine trying to have a conversation in a really crowded, noisy room.
Right.
You might hear some words, but you're missing all the subtle stuff, the emotional context.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I do. It's like I'm thinking about how we read work emails,
Mm-hmm.
just scanning for those action items, not really taking in the whole message.
Right.
And then I'm like, am I doing that with everything I read?
Yeah.
No wonder I can't remember anything.
Well, that's where the slow reading movement comes in,
Yeah.
right? It's about like reclaiming our attention, being more present, and really making a choice about how we engage with information.
Yeah, and I've been seeing everywhere.
Yeah.
Slow reading clubs, those silent reading parties,
Yeah.
even online groups.
Mm.
People are craving this.
Yeah. It's a reaction to all the noise, all the distractions of modern life.
Yeah.
People want that focused, undistracted time, not just with books, but with ideas in general.
It's like a mental detox or something.
Yeah, it's like hitting the reset button on your brain.
Totally. And what's interesting is it's not just for the bookworm types.
Right. I read about this woman, Diana LeCown. She started a virtual slow reading group, and she said, when I realized I was reading Twitter more than a book, I knew it was time for action.
Wow, that's great.
I feel that.
Yeah, I think it speaks to something we all feel, this pressure to keep up, consume information at this crazy rate.
Right. Got to be constantly in the know.
But what if we stopped chasing that next headline and just savored the words in front of us?
It makes you wonder, what are we missing out on when we're always in fast forward?
Yeah, and there's more and more research showing that slowing down, really engaging with information, it has benefits that go beyond just understanding what you read. Okay, so what kind of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, for one, it can actually improve your memory and how your brain works.
Oh, wow.
There was a study in 2013 published in Neurology, and it showed that doing mentally stimulating things regularly, like reading, can actually slow down how fast your memory declines.
So it's like a workout for your brain.
Exactly.
Keep those neurons firing.
Keep it sharp.
I like it.
And it's not just about staying sharp as you age, Slow reading can also have a big impact on your emotional intelligence.
Really? How so?
Well, there's this other study, also from 2013, published in Science, and they found that people who read literary fiction, they were better at empathy than people who read nonfiction or, popular fiction.
That actually makes sense when you think about it. Literary fiction, it really dives into those complex relationships and motivations.
Right.
makes you see the world through someone else's eyes.
Exactly. It's like practicing empathy in a safe space, engaging with different perspectives, all those complex emotions, and you get a deeper understanding of, the human experience.
That is fascinating.
Right.
And those are skills that translate to the real world, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it's relationships or work, just being more understanding of other people.
For sure, yeah.
That's amazing. And this might be a surprise, but research also shows that being a good reader as a kid is actually linked to doing well in school later on.
It's true.
So it's not just about enjoying a good book. It's like setting yourself up for success down the line.
Yeah, a study published in Developmental Psychology, this was back in 1997, and it showed that kids who were good readers in first grade, they were more likely to be successful academically in 11th grade, and this was regardless of their background or their IQ.
That is incredible. Really highlights how important it is to, encourage a love of reading from a young age.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those deep comprehension skills.
It seems so...
Wow. So thinking about all of this, how do you think incorporating slow reading into your routine, how could that affect your own life, personally and professionally?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I know I rush through things, emails and articles, just trying to get through as much as possible.
Right?
What if I slowed down, really took in the information, and considered those different viewpoints?
A great point.
Yeah.
Think about how that could change how you communicate, how you make decisions, even how creative you are.
Hmm.
And in your personal life, how could slowing down and really listening to your loved ones, how could that change those relationships?
You're right. It's not just about reading. It's about bringing that same mindfulness to everything.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm officially on board. But, gotta be honest, finding time for slow reading with my crazy schedule, that feels a little daunting.
I get it.
Yeah?
I totally understand. That's why we're going to dive into some practical tips and strategies for actually doing this in a busy life, all right?
Okay.
It's not about becoming a hermit or giving up all technology, okay? Okay, good.
Just small changes that can make a big difference over time.
All right, that sounds much more manageable. I'm ready.
Well, the first step is realizing that slow reading is a skill. And like any skill, it takes time to develop.
Yeah.
Just like learning a new instrument or training for a marathon, you need patience, practice, and you gotta be willing to embrace the process.
No speed reading shortcuts here, huh?
Definitely not.
All right.
Remember, the goal isn't to race through it. It's to really savor it, let those ideas sink in, make those connections.
Got it. Slow and steady wins the race.
There you go.
So where do we even begin with this?
Start small and gradually get more challenging as you go. Don't try to tackle War and Peace right away,
Yeah, good point.
Start with shorter pieces that you're actually interested in, whether it's a blog post, an article, a chapter in a novel, something like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Starting with something you want to read.
Yeah.
That'll definitely make it more enjoyable. But how do you actually carve out that time when you're, like, constantly bombarded with notifications and emails?
You got to be intentional, create a space without distractions, find a quiet spot, sit comfortably, put your phone away, turn off the TV, let the people around you know that you need some time to disconnect.
Like a mini retreat for your mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A sacred space for deep thinking
I like
and
it.
reflection.
Okay, so find a quiet space, minimize those distractions, check.
Right.
But are there specific things you can do while you're reading that help you slow down and really engage with the text?
Oh, absolutely. There are a few things that can be really helpful.
Okay.
First, read aloud.
Okay.
I know it sounds a little old-fashioned, but it forces you to slow down and pay attention to each word.
Yeah, that's true.
And it also helps you get the rhythm of the language, which can be especially helpful for language learners.
That's a good point.
Another thing you can do is use a pointer.
A pointer.
Yeah, this could be your finger, a pencil, even a ruler, anything. It helps guide your eyes across the page and keeps you from skimming ahead.
Oh, I see, like physically slowing yourself down.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting.
Then annotate the text.
Ah, yes. I used to do that a lot in college,
Yeah.
but not so much anymore.
Well, underline key phrases. Write notes in the margins, highlight things that resonate with you. You're having a dialogue with the author.
I'm realizing that was actually a really effective way for me to, like, really engage with what I was reading.
It's powerful, right?
Yeah, and make it my own.
It turns reading from a passive thing into an active
It's
conversation.
like you're a participant, not just a spectator.
Exactly. That's what makes slow reading so transformative.
I see that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm seeing the value here, but realistically, finding the time for slow reading when you're juggling a million things, it's tough.
It is. It is. The key is to start small, be realistic about how much time you have.
Yeah.
Don't try to change your whole routine overnight, right?
Yeah.
Start with just 15, 20 minutes a day. Maybe during your lunch break or before bed.
That makes me think about all those times I'm just like mindlessly scrolling through social media.
Yes.
What if I turn those moments into mini slow reading sessions?
That's a fantastic idea. It's about being mindful of how you're spending your time
Right.
and using it for something that's more enriching.
I love that. Turning those mindless habits into opportunities for growth.
Absolutely.
So what are some other ways to make slow reading a more, sustainable part of my life?
Make it a ritual. Incorporate it into things you already do,
Right.
like enjoy a cup of tea and read for 20 minutes before bed, or have a quiet lunch break with a good book.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Something like that.
Yeah, those are great tips for fitting it into a busy schedule. But before we go any further, I'm curious,
Yeah.
are there certain types of things that are just, better suited for slow reading?
That's a great question, and honestly, it really depends on your goals and what you like.
Huh.
The most important thing is to choose something that you find engaging and stimulating.
So no slogging through boring textbooks just because you feel like you're shitty.
No, definitely not.
Okay, good to know.
If you're forcing yourself, you're probably not going to get the benefits.
That makes sense. So where should people start if they're looking for things to slow read?
Here are a few ideas.
Okay.
Literary fiction, like we talked about earlier, it's great for practicing empathy and understanding human nature.
Right.
Poetry is another good one. The language is so compressed, it really requires you to pay attention.
Yeah.
Nonfiction, books and articles, choose something that makes you think.
Okay.
Biographies and memoirs, learning about other people's lives can give you new perspectives.
I like that.
And of course, classic literature. Those works often need a slower pace to really appreciate them.
It's a good list.
Yeah.
I love that you included such a variety.
Yeah.
It shows that you can really apply slow reading to anything as long as you're being intentional and curious.
Exactly. Find what you enjoy, make it a part of your routine.
So we talked about the benefits in general, but I know you specifically asked for this deep dive. So I want to focus on how slow reading can really help language learners.
Yeah, let's dive into that.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, before we get into specifics, let's acknowledge the challenges that language learners face, right?
For sure.
Learning a new language, it's like trying to solve a puzzle while juggling a dozen things at the same time.
I can only imagine. I'm feeling stressed just thinking about it.
It's a lot, right? And it's no wonder so many language learners get frustrated.
Yeah, for sure.
They're constantly bombarded with new vocabulary, grammar rules, cultural nuances. It's a lot to process.
So where does slow reading fit into all of this?
It gives you a way to break down this complex process into smaller pieces.
Okay.
It's about shifting your mindset from quantity to quality.
Right.
Instead of cramming a ton of information, you're focusing on deeply understanding smaller bits of the language.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But how exactly does slow reading actually support language acquisition?
Well, there are a few ways. First, it lets you really focus on learning new words.
Okay.
When you're reading slowly, you have more time to notice new words, look them up, and try to understand how they're used in context.
It's like giving your brain the space it needs to really absorb those new words.
Exactly. And it's not just about memorizing definitions, it's about understanding how words are used in different situations, which is crucial for actually being fluent.
Right. So it's seeing those words in action, not just as isolated words in a list.
Precisely. Slow reading also helps you understand grammar better.
Okay.
When you're reading carefully, you pay closer attention to sentence structure, verb tenses, all those grammatical elements.
It's like getting a grammar lesson without realizing it.
Exactly. That subconscious learning is really powerful.
I like it. Okay. So slow reading helps with vocabulary and grammar. Are there any other benefits specifically for language learners?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
It can also improve your pronunciation and intonation.
Oh, interesting.
When you're reading aloud slowly, you have more time to focus on the sounds of the language and practice saying the words correctly.
Okay.
You can even record yourself reading and then listen back to see how you're doing.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah, it's like turning reading into a pronunciation exercise.
I like that.
And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become in speaking.
Okay, I'm convinced. Slow reading is definitely valuable for language learners.
Yeah.
But for someone just starting out, it can feel a little overwhelming. So where would you recommend they begin?
Just like with any new skill, start small and gradually increase the challenge as you go. Okay.
Okay.
For English language learners, here are a few tips.
Perfect. Let's hear them.
So first, choose materials that are right for your level.
Okay.
Don't try to read Shakespeare if you're just starting out.
Right.
Begin with simpler things like children's books or those graded readers
Right.
or articles about things you're interested in.
Okay.
It's about giving yourself that space to learn at your own pace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And here's a technique I really recommend for language learners read aloud.
Go.
It's a fantastic way to practice your pronunciation and how you sound when you speak, that intonation.
Yeah, I used to do that when I was learning Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
It really helped me get over being scared to speak.
It's a simple strategy, but it works.
And it made me pay more attention to the sounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to use a dictionary or a grammar guide as you read.
Okay.
If you see a word you don't know or a grammar rule that confuses you, take the time to look it up and figure it out.
So it's about being an active learner,
Yeah.
not just passively reading.
Exactly. Engage with the text, ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
underline those keywords, take notes, highlight things that resonate with you.
It's interesting how we keep coming back to this idea of active engagement.
Right.
It's like a key part of slow reading, no matter what you're trying to get out of it.
It really is what makes slow reading different.
Yeah.
And for language learners, that active engagement is how you really internalize the language.
I see that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about the right materials, reading aloud, using resources, being active.
Right.
What else can language learners do to make slow reading even more effective?
Finding a language partner can be super helpful.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
Talking about what you're reading with someone else can help you really understand it,
Yeah.
get feedback on your pronunciation and grammar,
Yeah.
even learn new words and phrases.
It's like having a built-in study buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
Keeps you accountable.
And it makes it more fun than writing alone.
I like that. Okay, what about specific techniques for really digging into the text? What can learners do to maximize what they're getting out of it?
Here's one: focus on one paragraph at a time.
Okay.
Instead of trying to read a whole chapter or a whole article,
Right.
break it down into smaller pieces.
Okay.
Read each paragraph carefully. Look up words you don't know. Make sure you understand the grammar. It's like taking small bites instead of trying to swallow a whole meal at once.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
It makes it much easier to digest.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get so overwhelmed when I try to read too much at once.
Yeah, you overload the circuit.
Like my brain just shuts down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give your brain the space it needs.
Okay, so focus on one paragraph at a time.
Right.
What else?
After you read a paragraph, try to say it in your own words or even translate it into your native language.
Oh, interesting.
This helps you check if you really understood it.
So you're not just skimming, but actually getting the meaning.
Exactly.
Okay.
What else? Identify those keywords and phrases, underline or highlight them,
Yeah.
the ones you want to remember. You can even make flashcards
Ooh, flashcards.
or a word list to study later.
Yeah, classic for a reason.
They work.
Okay.
What else? Pay attention to how the language sounds,
Right.
the rhythm, the intonation. When you're reading aloud, try to copy how a native speaker sounds.
Okay. You can listen to audiobooks or podcasts to get a feel for it,
That's a good idea.
and then practice those sounds yourself.
I love listening to podcasts in the languages I'm learning.
It's a great way to immerse yourself.
Yeah, tune my ear to the sounds.
And then one final tip, and this is important, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes.
If you're struggling, don't hesitate to ask a language partner, a tutor, or a teacher.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
Asking for help isn't a weakness, it's actually a strength.
Exactly.
It shows you're committed to learning.
We all need help sometimes.
Absolutely. Okay, we've talked a lot about slow reading.
Yeah.
But what about speed reading? Isn't there a time and a place for that?
That's a good question. Speed reading can be useful sometimes.
Okay.
Like when you're just trying to get the main idea of a news article, or you're looking for a specific piece of information in a technical document.
Right.
But when you're trying to really learn and understand something, slow reading is better.
It lets you really engage with the material, make connections, and remember it longer.
So it's about using the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Speed reading is a sprint, slow reading is a marathon.
Perfect analogy.
I like that. Okay, I'm curious. Some people might say slow reading is just too slow,
Yeah,
especially in our fast-paced world.
I hear that.
How do you respond to that?
It's true. We live in a culture that values speed and efficiency.
Yeah.
And it can feel weird to slow down, especially with reading.
Right.
But I really believe the benefits outweigh any drawbacks.
Okay.
When we slow down and really engage, we learn more, and we also develop a deeper appreciation for the language itself.
So it's about more than just getting information.
Yeah.
It's about that connection to the language and the ideas.
Exactly. And that connection can really enrich our lives.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about slow reading, how to do it.
Right.
But I want to touch on something else. This idea that slow reading can be a form of self-care.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so easy to feel overwhelmed and stressed in our world today. We're
Yeah.
constantly bombarded with stuff.
Yeah.
Information, stimulation.
Our brains are always on.
Exactly. Slow reading is like hitting the pause button,
Uh-huh.
reconnecting with yourself.
It's creating a sanctuary for your mind
Exactly.
where you can slow down, just be,
Yeah.
and rediscover the joy of reading, of getting lost in a story, of learning something new.
Absolutely. That's a gift.
Okay, I'm inspired. I'm ready to put away my phone, find a cozy spot, and embrace this whole slow reading thing.
I love it. And remember, even just a few minutes each day can make a difference.
Okay.
It's not about reading everything slowly.
Right.
Just choose the things you really want to savor and give yourself permission to slow down.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
about recognizing that slow reading is not just about reading slowly, it's about slowing down our whole lives.
Right, making those conscious choices.
About how we spend our time and energy.
It's about being more present,
Yeah.
more mindful,
Huh?
more intentional.
Beautifully said. And that's something that can help us in all areas of life.
Well, I think we've really explored this topic of slow reading,
We have.
especially for language learners.
It's been a great journey.
And I hope you, our listener, have found this conversation as interesting and thought-provoking as we have.
I hope so too.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a final question to think about.
Okay.
In what areas of your life could you benefit from slowing down and paying closer attention? Maybe it's your relationships, your work, your hobbies, or even just how you connect with yourself.
Right.
We encourage you to explore the power of slowness and discover all the amazing things that happen when you really take the time to engage with the world around you.
That's beautiful.
Happy reading, and until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving. It really is about shifting how we think, you know? We're so used to thinking about being efficient and productive.
Yeah.
But sometimes slowing down is the most productive thing we can do.
It's like that saying, sometimes you have to slow down to speed up.
Exactly. When we slow down and really engage with the material, we actually learn better and remember it longer.
So it's like building a strong foundation.
Yeah, like building a house.
Mm-hmm.
If you rush the foundation, the whole thing's going to be weaker.
Makes sense.
But if you take your time, make it solid,
Yeah,
the house will be stronger, more resilient.
that's a great metaphor.
Right.
I'm seeing how this applies to so many things, not just reading.
Think about your relationships.
Okay.
And when you slow down and really listen to someone,
Yeah.
you're showing respect, valuing their perspective.
Right.
You build a stronger connection.
And with work, if you approach it with that slow and mindful attitude, you're more likely to do better work, be more creative, and not burn out.
Exactly. Slowing down helps you see the bigger picture, make connections you might have missed, and be more creative when facing challenges.
Okay, I'm starting to get it, but I have to admit,
Yep.
there's still a part of me that resists this whole slowing down thing.
Yeah,
It feels almost, I don't know, countercultural,
I understand that.
going against the grain.
We live in a society that glorifies being busy, always doing more.
Right, always on.
But the truth is, that can lead to burnout, anxiety, feeling empty.
It's like we're always running but not going anywhere.
Exactly. Slowing down lets us step off that treadmill and reconnect with what really matters.
Okay.
It's about quality over quantity, depth over speed, meaning over just achievement.
You know, this conversation has really made me rethink my own relationship with time and productivity.
Yeah.
I'm realizing slowing down isn't about being lazy.
Right.
It's about being intentional with my time and energy.
It's about choosing what's truly important and letting go of the rest.
Yeah.
Making space for reflection, creativity, connection.
And recognizing that sometimes the most productive thing is just to slow down and be present.
Beautifully said. That can benefit us in so many ways.
Well, I think this has been a really insightful deep dive into slow reading,
It has.
especially for language learners.
I agree. It's been great exploring this with you.
And to you, our listener, I hope you found this conversation as enriching and thought-provoking as we have.
Me too.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last question to think about.
Okay.
In what areas of your life could you benefit from slowing down and paying closer attention?
Good question.
Maybe it's relationships, work, hobbies, or even just your inner world.
It could be anything.
We encourage you to explore that power of slowness, Discover all the good things waiting for you when you really engage with the world around you.
That's a great takeaway.
Happy reading, and until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving.